All right, welcome to Diagramming for Dummies. It's kind of a misnomer now. Nobody's a dummy because we diagram.
Well, right, but I don't retain.
All right, let's start our time with a word of prayer, shall we? Heavenly Father, we thank you for tonight, for the opportunity to look into your word. I pray that we would not miss you as we come to examine and diagram what you have revealed in print form. We thank you so much for your word, for those who have labored to make it available to us in our language so that we might understand it, that we might know you. And we pray tonight that you would give us more tools to understand your word, that we might live for your glory, that we might love you more. In Jesus' name. Okay, this is the sentence we left off with last week. And we're going to begin by eliminating some prepositional phrases. Anybody see any prepositional phrases we need to get rid of?
Yes, I do say so.
Okay, what is it?
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, go ahead. But you do have to identify a prepositional phrase to make copies.
So he's intending do infinite discount by force.
By force. Okay, there you go.
By himself.
Okay. By himself.
By himself alone, maybe.
Okay. What are our requirements for a prepositional phrase? You have to have two things. A preposition and an object of the preposition. Okay. So alone wouldn't count because it is alone. It's all by itself. Okay. Okay, to come. There we see our little word to. It is often a preposition. But when it's with a verb, what do we call that? An infinitive. To plus a verb is called an infinitive. Okay? There is one more at least. To the mountain. To the mountain. Okay? So we've eliminated our prepositional phrases. Do we have more than one clause here? Is there more than one complete idea? Okay? Janet says yes.
I'm looking at my notes from last time. They were intending to come and take him by force to make him king as one complete idea.
Yes. They were intending to come and take him by force to make him king. That's a clause. Okay? That is a complete clause. What is a clause, by the way? What's our definition of a clause?
Put a period on there.
Okay, you could put a period on the end. Complete predication. You have a subject and a predicate. Okay? So yes, that's a clause. What's the other clause?
So Jesus proceeding out and drew again to the mountain by his alone.
Okay, so Jesus, perceiving that, withdrew again to the mountain by himself alone. Okay, so we have what we call a relative clause inside the main clause.
So how come you didn't include so?
Because that's going to be a conjunction that's joining this verse with something previous. And we started diagramming this last time, and we just put our little circle for subordinating conjunction around so. Okay.
We got the commas and the punctuation. Do we take those into account at all in this class?
Yes. Yeah, you'll take punctuation into account in this class, namely because the English translators have put the commas in, and they have represented the commas that are in the Greek text, which is not in the original Greek text, but got put in there somewhere by somebody. So they're not authoritative. The commas aren't God-breathed, but they're reliable. Is that fair?
Yeah, I guess my question is, do they factor into the diagram?
And yes, they factor into the diagram. Okay? And the commas help set off this participial phrase, perceiving. Okay? There are places where commas matter, right? Don't shoot, comma, grandma is different than don't shoot, grandma. Right? Commas save lives. Okay. So, Jesus, how far did we get? Can I look at somebody's notes? Did we diagram at all?
We got
Okay. We got this first clause. What's our subject?
Jesus.
Jesus. What's our verb?
Withdraw.
Withdrew.
Withdrew, sorry.
Yeah. So here's our subject. What did Jesus do? He withdrew. There's our verb. Okay. How did he withdraw?
By himself alone.
Okay, he withdrew again to the mountain by himself, alone, and maybe perceiving. Or did we put perceiving under Jesus?
No, Jesus.
Okay, we'll keep it there. That's fine. Perceiving is a participle. What's a participle? Yeah, it's a verb-like thing, ing or ed endings. Perceiving or perceived. In this case, perceiving, that ing ending. And the participle is acting like an adjective or an adverb. Okay, if it's acting like an adjective, what is it modifying? A noun. Adjectives modify nouns. If a participle was acting like an adverb, what would it be modifying? Verbs, adverbs, and adjectives. Okay? Adverbs modify verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. Okay? In this case, this participle is acting, it could be adjectival modifying Jesus, describing Jesus at this moment. It could be adverbial, describing what was going on behind his withdrawing. And I think you could make a case for either one. We'll leave it here for this diagram. Jesus perceiving something. This participle can take a direct object. What is the direct object? That. Okay? So that is our direct object. It's a relative pronoun, and it's going to link us to the clause within a clause, which itself is functioning as the direct object of Jesus' perception. Jesus perceived something. What did he perceive? That these people were intending to come and take him by force to make him king. That's what Jesus was perceiving. There's a sense in which you could put all of that right in here in the place of that. Okay? We'll diagram that together in a second. Jesus withdrew. How? This little adverb again. Okay, apparently this wasn't the first time. And he withdrew where? To is your preposition, object line, object of the preposition, mountain. Which mountain? The mountain. How did he withdraw? By himself. Okay. Is this prepositional phrase adjectival or adverbial? Okay, here are a couple of answers. Why would it be adverbial?
Because it's mounting.
It's, again, describing the verb, withdraw, and so an adverbial prepositional phrase is going to modify a verb. There's your preposition, object line, object of the preposition by himself. Okay, and then what is alone? Okay, it's another adverb describing how Jesus withdrew. Okay, so Jesus' withdrawal was, again, to the mountain by himself alone. Okay, now let's look at this that. What did Jesus perceive? He perceived that they, what's our subject for this new clause? They were intending to come and take him by force to make him king.
They.
They is your subject. Okay? What's the verb? Were intending. Okay? And then what did we call to come?
Infinitive.
An infinitive. And we're going to use this little mountain symbol for infinitives. We use it for participles, for infinitives. We use it for verb things that are acting another way than your main verb. Okay? In this case, this infinitive is completing the idea of the verb, we're intending. Remember we talked about verbs of will and wish and desire, in this case intention, are often completed with an infinitive. It's not enough to just say, hey, they were intending. That sounds like a new nursing position or something like that. Not attending, they were intending. They were intending to do something. You need that to do to complete the idea of the verb. What were they intending to do? They were intending to what? Okay, both. To come and to take. And to make. Okay, so this is interesting. How are we going to do this? They were intending to come and to take and they were intending to make. Okay, do you see that? We have 1, 2, they were intending to come and take. So this infinitive to takes the two verbs with it. They were intending to come and to take, and they were intending to make.
Even if it doesn't have the other and, you still put there. There are not two ands.
There's an and here.
Only one.
Oh, you're right. No, there is no and there. Thank you very much.
Smith, could you put the to make on the same line as the come and take?
You know what? You could. So to make might be completing the idea of coming and taking. They were intending to come and take him by force to make him king. I think it probably goes with this idea of taking him by force.
Why don't you think it goes with the idea of intending?
Does it mean essentially the same? They were intending to make him king? Yes, and that's originally where I was going. But this idea of making him king, forcing him to be king, goes along with this idea of taking him by force and making him king. More than just coming. It's not like them making him king were the same as, at the same level of just, hey, they arrived, let's make him king. No, they arrived, and they took him by force, or they're trying to take him by force and make him be their king. So I like Mike Brewer's suggestion here that this probably goes along with the taking him by force.
Excuse me, Smith, how are you connecting this secondary thought as to why Jesus withdrew? How do you show that connection?
We haven't yet.
Oh, okay.
We're going to
You're
finish
to.
diagramming this internal clause, and then we'll connect them.
Okay,
Yep.
okay,
But for now, it's just off to the side,
okay.
which is what we're going to do with all relative clauses.
Okay.
Here's the main idea,
Okay.
and the relative clause we're building is off to the side. We haven't
Okay.
gotten to how they're connected yet.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's do that. They were intending to come and to take him, direct object is him, and then by force. What does this modify?
Take.
Yeah, so this is an adverbial prepositional phrase modifying take. Preposition, object line, object of the preposition. By force. And then we're going to put our other infinitive, completing the idea of taking. They're taking him to make him.
So did you ever diagram infinitives as a modifier, like modifying take? Why do they take him to make him king? And like underneath take?
Like to make it like an adverbial infinitive. I don't know that I have. If it was and that's only because to stay consistent with infinitives, staying on the verbal line or whatever the main line they are. Are you saying do something like this?
Yeah, kind of like even proceeding for Jesus.
Yeah, I never have, and I don't know. I don't know if I've seen that. At some level, some sentence you're going to come across at some point doesn't follow any of the examples you have ever seen before, and you're going to have to do something to show the relationship. Again, the idea here is any diagramming system you use is a tool and is not itself God-breathed. So there are things I've modified over time that are not like anybody else's, because certain things just don't fit. So that's a good question. It makes me afraid of the inconsistency of just not having the infinitives on the top line, or with going with whatever they're going with. So if you had a infinitive that was acting as a substantive, like to live is Christ, it's sitting here on the top line. If you have a complementary infinitive completing the verbal idea, it's sitting on the top line. In other words, I've never seen a reason to put it in a modifier slot. In this case, this idea to make can still be seen as completing the verbal idea of taking, rather than modifying it. I like the idea of completing the verbal idea, which is the function of the infinitive on with a verb. Now on to make him king, does make take a direct object?
Yeah.
Yeah, here you have him as a direct object. What do you do with king?
I think it's an adjective.
Those appositions.
Okay, yeah, is this apposition? Can you substitute king for him? They intended to come by force to make king. It's not really working the same way as apposition.
Like to throw him the ball. make him-
Okay, yeah, is it something like an indirect object? If I kick you the ball, am I kicking you or the ball? I'm kicking the ball to you. You would be an indirect object. The ball is taking the action as the direct object. Is that what's happening here? Are they coming to make to him kingness or something like that? I don't think this is an indirect object.
It's an adjective, but it could have been written as a preposition.
Okay, what part of speech is king? It's a noun. Okay, so very clearly we have a pronoun in him and we have king as a noun. This is called an object complement. An object complement. That is, it is complementing the direct object. And there's a sense in which they are coming to make him to be king. Right? What's implied here is this little being idea. They're intending to come to make him to be king. And so that to be isn't there in the English. They're just coming to make him king. So just like we have predicate nominatives, where, do you remember the predicate nominative? I am king gets diagrammed like this. Because in the predicate, you have a noun that is naming or renaming the subject. But that noun is in the predicate. We call that a predicate nominative. It's a similar idea here, except what would be a predicate nominative is actually modifying the direct object. Not modifying, but renaming the direct object. We would put king in what we call the object complement spot. Object complement.
Could it have been written as could you have analyzed it as a preposition, as in to make him into king?
To make him into the king.
As opposed to be?
To make him into the king, like to turn him into the king. It almost sounds like a magic spell. You know, turn him into the frogs turn into princes.
Is it bad English?
Yeah, it's uncomfortable.
Okay.
Yeah, because it makes it sound like you're making him something he wasn't. I don't know how to describe it. To make him king, we understand what that means. To crown him, right? And so this construction is the object complement construction. You have a verb, an action verb, with a direct object, but then you're renaming the direct object with the backslash, the object complement. Okay? So they were intending to come and take him, take to what end? Take to make him what? Make him to be king. And they wanted to take him by force. Okay. So now we have our clause. This is our relative clause with our relative pronoun. Our relative pronoun that. And that is a substitute for this entire clause. They were intending to come and take him by force to make him king. And so we put a dotted line around our relative pronouns, a dotted box around our relative pronouns. And then we'll put dots around the referent of the relative pronoun. And by referent, we mean the thing that it refers to. Remember when we had pronouns, I or they? We talk about the referent of a pronoun. In this case, in John 6, the referent of the pronoun is the crowd that just got fed a free lunch by Jesus' miraculous creation out of nothing of fish and bread. That's who the they is. They are the referent It is the crowd of followers who just eat for free. The referent of that is this whole statement. Jesus, perceiving they were intending to come and take him by force and make him king. That's what Jesus was perceiving. Okay? So that entire thing gets a dotted box around it, and the relative pronoun gets a dotted box around it. And then we just connect them. Okay, that's how those two are related. When we get to diagramming clause after clause after clause after clause in a section, in a passage, we're going to be very concerned with how these clauses are related to each other. And we're going to indent subordinate clauses, and we're going to make parallel main clauses. Relative clauses will go off to the side. And relative clauses are like the relative that you don't talk about in your family, the crazy uncle that stays up in the attic and nobody talks about. He's off to the side. Okay? The relative clauses go off to the side because this is not in keeping with the main flow of the storyline. The storyline is going to be down your page. This happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. What a relative clause does is it lets the author tell a whole lot more information about one little part.
Okay, so it's not crazy notes. It's top to bottom, left to right. So you're going from main idea, and then you'll have the relative clause, and then subordinating clauses will be indented.
Correct.
And then anything that's kind of off to the side, how do you point that back to what it's relating to?
Say that last part one
Well,
more
you
time.
said there's even clauses that are not subordinate and not relative. What are they again? The crazy clauses?
No, the relative clauses are like the crazy relatives. They're off to the side. Relative clauses go to the side. They're not in the main flow. I may have said it incorrectly.
Oh, okay.
The relative clauses go off to the side. Main clauses, subordinate clauses go under each other in different kinds of relationships we haven't talked
Gotcha.
about.
Okay.
What makes a clause relative?
Because it is related to something in this clause.
So is it always going to be inside another clause?
Not always. Not always. For instance, you might call this one an object clause. It's functioning as a direct object of the participle perceiving. But the point is, perceiving something. Well, the relative clause lets us tell a whole lot more about that something. So the relative clause is related to something in the main clause. Okay? Now let's just think about this for a moment. In the earthly ministry and life of Jesus, he's at the height of his popularity. The crowds are following him. He's fed 5,000 plus, 5,000 men plus whoever else was there. And he just spoke into existence things that didn't exist before. Loaves of bread, fish. You know, what does it take to feed somebody a fish? Well, the fish has to grow, swim around, eat, get bigger, then get caught, then get prepared, and then be sliced up and fed to the crowds. Jesus, in an instant, creates it out of nothing and creates many fish out of nothing. And he does the same thing with bread that would normally take lots of time to prepare, to have the yeast culture grow and for it to be baked and then sliced and distributed. And Jesus does all of this by speaking it into existence. This is remarkable, miraculous power. And it reveals that Jesus really is the creator who spoke everything into existence out of nothing from the beginning. And he is here in the flesh. The crowds are following Jesus. And what is their response? You know what? We've been waiting for a Messiah. We've been waiting for somebody to overthrow the Roman Empire. Israel has not been free, independent, and autonomous for hundreds of years. And so he must be the one. And what was their intention? What was the people's intention? Hey, we just got a free lunch. This guy's great. He's healing all our people. And man, if we tag along with this guy, we might get free lunches all the time. And so they were intending to come and take him by force to make him king. You and I would be suckers for that. Hey, everybody likes me. Ride the wave of popularity. Let's go. I'll sit on the throne. I've got an army here. I mean, what would the Romans do with 5,000 plus all storming the castle gates and saying, this is our king? That'd be tough. It'd be tough for the Romans. And Jesus sees their intention. The amazing thing is, Jesus is king. He is king. He's king of the universe. And he will come and be king on the earth. But he's not going to be king this way. He's not going to be handed his kingdom by people who are in it for the free lunch. Right? Jesus later in John 6 says the stuff that's really hard for even the disciples to hear. He says, you're coming to me because I gave you food. But don't you know that the true food that comes down out of heaven is me? So if you do not eat of my flesh and drink of my blood, you have no part in me. Wait, I just wanted like wheat bread and some sardines. Now you're talking about cannibalism. This is crazy. And they left. They walked away. What did Jesus turn to the disciples and said, you don't want to go away too? And they said, Lord, where would we go? You have the words of eternal life. What's interesting here is just this main idea. It's very simple. What is this passage all about? You have it for yourselves on your piece of paper. Jesus withdrew. Jesus withdrew. I think that's just staggering. We think about what are Jesus' plans for the growth of the church? What are Jesus' plans for the building of his kingdom? What are Jesus' plans for his own glory? They're not by human power. They're not by the massive popularity. It's going to be his way and his terms, and he withdraws. He goes and decides to be alone. By the way, the redundancy here is amazing. He withdrew again to the mountain by himself alone. He withdrew again to the mountain by himself alone. I think John wanted us to get the point. Jesus was not interested in this mass of people crowning him king to the point that he went away by himself. Probably seeking fellowship with his Father that he had not been away from for most of eternity and was now away from. Okay, you can write this one down. For I have, not yet. So sorry. They were intended. Let's analyze this verb. They were intended. Remember, we're going to analyze tense, voice, and mood. What are the tenses we've learned so far?
Past, present, future, and the other one.
Okay. Past, present, future, and the other one.
Perfect.
The perfect. Okay? Which can be subdivided into the past, present, and future perfect. Okay? What would the past tense be with this verb? They intended. That would be past. What would the present be?
Intended.
They intend, or they are intending. Okay? What would the future be? They will intend. What would the perfect be?
Which one do you want?
Okay, let's do the present perfect.
Have intended.
They have intended.
Okay, so
Okay?
this is,
Past perfect would be
Have,
they had intended. Future perfect,
they will be intended.
will have.
they will have intended. There aren't very many of those, thankfully. Okay? This isn't any of those.
Well, is have been intending present perfect?
What would have been intending? Yeah. Yeah. That could fall under the present perfect category. We're going to call this one the imperfect. The imperfect. They were intending. Okay? And this just means, we've looked at all of our diagrams in the past. If the you are here button is this right here, the imperfect tense is something like this. A continuous action in the past. A continuous action in the past. When I was in 6th grade, I was going down to the Circle K at 67th and Thunderbird and buying baseball cards every week. Okay? So I'm intending, I did this a lot. Whenever I had money, I was going down to the Circle K and getting a Slurpee and baseball cards. I was doing that for a time, but I'm not doing that now. The imperfect allows you to talk about a continuous action in the past. Okay. That has some bearing on this passage in John 6. They were intending to come and take him by force to make him king. This wasn't just a one split-second thought by the crowd. What John's intending to convey with the imperfect tense is there is a ginning up of this idea. People were saying this, not just once, but over and over and over again. You can almost imagine the crowd chanting, calling for him to be king. And maybe it was just in everybody's thoughts continually all at the same time. John doesn't tell us how Jesus perceived. I don't know if there were banners, or people were shouting. He doesn't tell us. But with this imperfect, there's a continuous nature to their intending.
Continuous at that one time.
Continuous in the past, correct.
But you're not saying ever since he started healing people and into this time.
We
You're
don't
saying
know.
just at this time.
Yeah, we don't know how long those brackets are. Yeah. We don't know if John isn't telling us if that started at Bethlehem and went to the cross, or if it was only at the feeding of the 5,000 or sometime earlier.
That looks to me pretty clearly only at the 5,000. Is there something in the original language that I don't see?
It's not
Or is there something in the English that I'm not getting?
I don't think there's any reason to see beyond the feeding of the 5,000 for they were intending.
Why wouldn't you just say that's past tense?
Because the simple past tense would be they intended. They intended. So what John is doing with the imperfect, I believe, is portraying the continuous nature of that. This is something to pay attention to in the Gospels, in a lot of different places, but especially in narratives. With the imperfect, they were doing something versus they did. That could be a significant difference. They were doing something means not just once, but a continuity, a continuous action done more than once. So for whatever reason, that's what John's trying to portray.
Is there one gospel writer that does it more often than another?
Well, that would be a good statistical thing to investigate, probably. I don't know. Okay, for I have come down from heaven. Not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. Okay? I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. Any prepositional phrases here? Okay. Of him. From heaven. But the will is not going to be a prepositional phrase. What is the word but?
Conjunction.
It's a conjunction. Yep. And what kind of conjunction is that? Is it subordinating or coordinating? Okay, it's coordinating. And how do we know it's coordinating? Because it's and or but nor. Okay. Most other things are going to be subordinated. What about for? Okay. Sometimes for acts like a preposition, but here it's acting like a conjunction. Is it coordinating or subordinating? Subordinating. Why is for a subordinating conjunction rather than coordinating conjunction? Because it's not and or but nor. Okay? Good. For I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. Do we have more than one clause here?
Who sent me?
Yeah, who sent me is a complete clause. Okay, we're going to have complete predication with who sent me, right? You could put a name instead of who, and you'd have a complete sentence. Okay? For I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him. Any other clauses?
Come down from heaven?
Oh yeah, so if you say, for I have come down from heaven, if you stop the clause here, do you have a complete clause with the rest of it? No, you don't. So you can't stop it here. Okay? So I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. Let's start with the who sent me. Okay? Diagram starts at the cross. What's our subject? Who. And what's our verb? Okay? And does this verb take a direct object? Yes. The pronoun me. Okay? Who sent me? Is this verb active or passive? Okay, active. It's an active verb. What does active mean?
Subject of the action.
The subject is doing the action. Okay? Could you make this passive? I was sent. Okay, good. Yeah, so this is an active verb. What's the tense? Okay, so it's past, active. Okay, what about the mood? Interrogative, imperative, indicative, or subjunctive? Okay, it's indicative. It's a past, active, indicative verb. Who sent me? Okay, what's the subject over here? I. What's our verb? Have come. Okay? Does have come take a direct object? No. No. What is our tense? Okay. It's perfect. Yeah, and specifically the present perfect. I have come. I have come. What is the past tense? How would you do past tense? I came. What would be future? I will come. Okay, the present would be I come. Here it is, I have come. Okay, that's the present perfect. Okay. For, we said, is a subordinating conjunction. We're going to put a circle around our subordinating conjunctions. By the way, conjunctions don't go on the line. They always connect things that are on lines, but they don't go on the line. Okay, subordinating conjunction for, I have come. What is down?
Adverb.
It's an adverb. What do adverbs modify? Good. I have come down. Okay, what kind of prepositional phrase is from heaven? Is it adverbial or adjectival?
Adverbial.
Okay. It is adverbial. Where did I come from? I came from heaven. Okay, what do we do with this not to do my own will?
To do, is that one of those?
answers the question.
Infinitive.
Yes, to do is an infinitive, and we're going to put it up on here in the line with the verb. It's going to complete our verbal idea. I have come to do. Okay, it's negated by the not. It kind of gets in between our verb and our infinitive. We've got all this stuff in between, but logically the infinitive completes the verbal idea, and we can negate it right here. We don't negate the come because he did come. He's not saying I haven't come. He says I came, but not to do. Okay? Or to do not. Okay, does to do here take a direct object? What is the direct object? Will. Okay, which will? What about own? Adjective modifying will. I agree with that. Sounds kind of funny. Okay. Not to do my own will. But, now what do we do?
Implied to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Drop it.
I'm so sorry. You've been writing with pencil. I have the whiteboard and the eraser. Let's see. What do we need to do here? How about that? But to do what? Will is a direct object. Which will? Okay, the of him will. So we have an adjectival prepositional phrase. Of him. Okay, now the relative clause that we have over here, who is the who? Him. So we're going to put the dotted box around the referent. Him is the referent of who. Sounds like who's on first, what's on second. Who is our relative pronoun. And we just connect them with the dotted line. I haven't come down from heaven to do my own will. I've come down from heaven to do the will of him. Now let me tell you more about the him. The one who sent me. Okay, so the relative clause fills out more details of some element in the main clause. In this case, the one whose will Jesus is doing is the very one who sent him.
There's no easier way to do that, is there?
There are other ways to do this. Are you talking about this little split right here?
It really bugs me that to do's not right by that mountain, but I can't put it there in my head.
Yeah, so, yeah.
See if someone gets to put that
I want to
number
put
somewhere,
the,
right?
yeah, I'm trying to find a way to do it without reduplicating the to-do. But the not really goes with the to-do, and then it is implied. The to-do is implied in the second one. I think that's probably the nicest way to do it.
Because it's to do. It's to do or not to do.
That is the question. Yeah. Okay. Good job. Any questions on this? By the way, with the perfect tense, the have come, I have come, what is that perfect tense telling us about the result of his coming? Is Jesus still there when he says this?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and that is the function of the present perfect. I have come, meaning I came and I'm still here. If I said I had come, that means I'm calling you on the phone and telling you I came and I was there for a while, but I'm not anymore. Right? If I said I will have come, I'm emailing you and telling you I'm going to be there, I'm going to come, and I'm going to stay. But here, I have come. I came in the past, and the abiding results of that past activity last into the present time.
How can you tell that's not imperfect? I am struggling with the difference.
Yeah, imperfect would be I was coming. So a continuous action in the past. I'm telling you about a time in the past when I was continually coming. Does that make sense?
Instead of like a point in time where you started to come in the head.
Yeah, so the perfect
The other one
tense, the present perfect is, so here's the you are here dot. Here's an action in the past that continues into the present. I came and I'm still here.
What's the past perfect?
I had come. So here's the you are here dot. I had come and it had abiding results until some point in the past.
Okay, and you could, and with the imperfect, you could put that dot where I had come on any part of the,
I was coming is this sort of fuzzy, maybe happened a number of times, maybe it was continuous, maybe it was repeated. Okay, the next sentence you can write. The one who accuses you is Moses. Go ahead and take a stab at that.
There's two clauses. The one is Moses, and then can you separate it out and do who?
I was going to
accuses
have
you?
you take a stab silently. Everybody
Sorry.
kind of. That's all right.
I appreciate that.
Spoiler alert, there are two clauses. Okay. Where do we find our two clauses?
The one is Moses?
Okay. The one is Moses. Where's our other clause?
Who accuses you?
Who accuses you? Does everybody understand why who accuses you is a clause? Do you have a subject? What's our subject and who accuses you? Who. Okay. And the way I like to sort of cheat with that is I'll just, if I have a pronoun, like a who, which, what, that, I like to put somebody's name in there. Fred. Fred accuses you, right? Could Fred accuses you be a complete sentence? Yeah. That's how you test whether it's a clause. A clause can be a complete sentence. It's a complete idea. What's a phrase? It's just a group of words. Phrase is a group of words. Okay, a clause is a group of words with complete predication. You could capitalize it, put a period on it, call it a sentence, and it would make sense. Okay, so who accuses you is a clause. It's a relative clause because it has in it a relative pronoun. Okay, a relative clause has in it or with it a relative pronoun. Okay, let's start with the relative clause. Who accuses you? Our subject is who. What is our verb? Accuses.
Direct object.
Okay, there is a direct object. What is that?
You.
You. Okay. Analyze the verb for me, accuses. Present, active, indicative. Good.
And you gotta put your dots around him.
I will when we do the other, yep, but that's exactly right. Well, I'm going to wait, because sometimes the whole thing gets dots, and sometimes just the relative pronoun gets dots. It all depends on what's being referred to. Remember that one object clause where that whole sentence was tied up with the that. So we kind of wait to see what's related to it.
Now, the reason why you use the relative clause first, is that just by personal choice? Is it?
I usually don't do it first. It's just easier because it was 3 words. Okay? What about the one is Moses? Do we have a subject? One. Okay. What's our verb? Is. Okay. Does is take a direct object?
No.
No, it can't take a direct object. It is a being verb. Is, am, are, was, were, be, being, been. But it does take a predicate nominative. Okay? A predicate nominative is a noun in the predicate that's renaming the subject. So we do the backslash because it's sort of pointing back at the subject. Okay, in this case, one is Moses. And the one sort of works like your equal sign. Okay, the one is Moses. Okay?
So where'd you write for that?
Predicate nominative? That's not the question you asked, is it? Oh, sorry, yes. What does the modify? One. And what is the?
Definite article.
It's the definite article, and it functions as an adjective. The definite article adjective modifies one. Okay? So the one is Moses. Who accuses you? Who is who? Okay. Yeah. You're right saying the idea is it's Moses. But grammatically, the answer to the question is one. Okay? The one who accuses you, so the one accusing you is Moses. What is the point Jesus is trying to make? The one that's doing whatever the relative clause is saying is doing, that one is Moses. So one is your reference to who?
Why not who accuses you?
I can get along with that. I'm okay with either one.
Is there like
The whole idea is the one accusing you is Moses.
And isn't the main idea who accuses you? Or is the main idea one is Moses?
The main idea is always here. The main idea is never in the relative clause. And
I guess I would have thought one is Moses, it kind of goes under who. It's interesting. How do you know?
Yeah.
Is it because it came first in the sentence?
It's really because the subject of this clause is the relative pronoun. So, the one, Jesus is talking about a one.
Okay.
And he's identifying that one. And that one is Moses. But he's going to tell us more about that one. What is that one doing? He's accusing you. Now it's an answer to... What's that?
Doesn't that part seem more important? Or no?
It's answering Jesus' question, but grammatically, no. Because the question at stake in this conversation Jesus is having with the Jews, they're convinced that Jesus isn't Messiah. They're not ready to believe that Jesus is Messiah. And they're upholding Mosaic law, Mosaic instruction. Moses is our guy, and since you disagree with Moses, then we don't have to agree with you. We don't have to submit to you. We don't have to follow you. And Jesus says, actually, Moses is accusing you. You're actually held accountable to what you think is your Savior. You think your safety is in the Old Testament. Well, guess what? The Old Testament's going to call you out.
So, because if I look at this sentence too, Janet, I would feel the same way as you do because it seems so strong. But in context, like you just clarified that, if we can go to the sentence before and after and understand the context of it, that would also help us. If I know you have us isolating sentences,
Right.
But it's really, don't you think Like, that has to be in context, because Jesus could have said, look, this is Moses. He could have just pointed to Moses and said, you don't have to listen to me, just listen to Moses. And adding that he's the one accusing you is,
So,
yeah, is it?
and so that's a good question, because grammatically, there's no way to switch this around. And the context isn't going to allow you to switch it around grammatically. As far as just the rules of what grammar is doing, this is the main clause and this is the relative clause. That's just the way it is. And it may not make sense if this is the only information we have. We might wonder, why did John put this is the verb. I mean, Moses accusing you, that's the meat of this thing. Why did he put that in a relative clause instead of in the main clause? Because this is the main clause and that is the relative clause. You just can't get around it grammatically. Well, the context is going to help you see Jesus is answering the question here. So if it weren't isolated, it wouldn't be so difficult to get around.
Well, but you're saying grammatically, so from that sentence, because one comes first and who accuses you is describing that?
No.
That's how you know?
No, because the subject of this verb is the relative pronoun. And the referent to the relative pronoun is in the main clause. So if we, just this sentence, if we change this to Fred, who accuses you, is blue. Just for the sake of making a different sentence out of it. What's the main idea? Fred is blue.
And you know that because it comes first. Is that, and that's not.
It's not a.
Say it?
No,
No,
you
okay.
know it because this one's the relative clause.
It's just how it
Because
feels in English.
it's the relative pronoun.
Is it just a matter of how it feels in English?
Not knowing what an answer to that question might convey, I don't know. Maybe. But it really is just because, I mean, it's just a black and white issue. This is a relative clause, and the relative clause is not the main clause.
Well, they were defensive. So saying that they're being accused is kind of restating the obvious in a way. What's happening is Jesus is pointing to them and saying, it's Moses here. They are already feeling accused because they're responding defensively. And he's pointing out Moses. The fact that he adds that back in, the author, John, writes that back in, is reminding them why they're being defensive. I don't know if it's for our sake, but it's almost redundant, and I want to be careful saying that, not having looking at the passage, but
Yeah, so, somebody look it up for us and find it. We'll move on to the next one and come back to give you the context there.
John 5:45.
Thank you.
Real quickly, Smith, it's not because the brackets are in the middle of the other brackets.
No, why put those there?
Like, you can't make a rule or a blanket rule of that when the brackets are.
No,
Okay.
no. It's not just because it's in the middle. Not just because it's embedded. So verse 45 says, "Do not think that I will accuse you before the Father. The one who accuses you is Moses." So it's not going to be me. The one is Moses. Does that make sense? Grammatically, you just can't get around that this is the relative clause. And if that's the only sentence you have, you might think it weird. But it's not the only sentence you have in that verse. I haven't answered your question yet.
That's right.
Okay. I still love you.
You should say that.
Okay. Now, before I give you this next sentence, do not look back to your previous notes.
Is that the sentence?
That was not the sentence. Okay. The goal.
right.
Okay. See what you can do.